One of my best, most favorite panels in the entire world, because today I have for you royal authors Tom Bower and Robert Jobson. I can hear the applause across the United States. Thank you so much for being here today. This is the first time I get to meet both of you in person.
So let's start with a juicy headline that's been bubbling up: Royal Reconciliation. Sounds warm and fuzzy, doesn't it? Like tea with scones and polite smiles. But according to Tom Bower and Robert Jobson, two guys who've spent decades reading the royals like other people read the sports section, this Peace Summit narrative is less about heartfelt forgiveness and more about PR spin gone wrong. Bower calls it confection. Translation: a sugary story whipped up for headlines. And he suspects it came straight from Harry and Meghan's own camp, possibly via their aggressive PR rep, Meredith Maines. His theory? She doesn't quite get how the British royals operate, but she sure knows how to get a photo op in the Daily Mail.
Did you feel butterflies too?
Always, even when you appear across the pond.
Earthquakes.
Right. Very California. Speaking of earthquakes, I feel like the biggest headline over the last few weeks really related to the British royal family is this idea of a royal reconciliation. And we have some of the top aides having these super secret meetings here in London, conveniently papped, photographed, and every last detail in the Daily Mail. Tom Bower, what was your reaction when you saw those headlines?
I thought it was confection. I thought it was manipulation. I thought that it showed, firstly, Harry absolutely desperate. I thought that Meredith Maines, who is a very aggressive PR for the Sussexes, got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it or even letting anyone know about it. Right. That was a great mistake. And I don't think it'll produce what they hope. And I think in the end, I don't think the Sussexes themselves know what they want anymore. But so I thought it was a terrific story and just reflected the opposite of what probably the leakers hoped it would show.
Oh, that's such a good point. Jobson?
Well, I mean, it does look like it's a Sussex thing. I don't necessarily think it is. I'm more of a cock-up believer in these things. It was my understanding that Tobin was the guy that wanted them to go outside, and things like that. So the photograph was everything. You've also got to remember that these are effectively talking about, these are communications people. They're not private secretaries, and they're not the people that necessarily speak to the king every day. They would have to, but he would know about it. He would have known about that meeting via Clive Alderton. Tobin would have had to clear that he was meeting these people as it was with Harry. I'm not sure who benefits out of it terrifically, really. I think that maybe the Sussexes, as Tom quite rightly says, are looking a little bit desperate at the moment. I think this Angola walk we've just seen him doing again what he did in 19, that his mother did. It's a bit like a one-trick pony, Harry, and he's reaching out. He's obviously desperate for this reconciliation. Really, because of course we know that his father's still he's being treated with chemotherapy, and he's already said publicly he doesn't know how long he's got left. So maybe they want to get discussions going about the all-important things that happen at a time when people are coming to an end, money, I think.
Well, I think it's more than just money. I think what Harry fears is that when and if his father dies, his brother will banish him from Britain. I think that the hatred amongst William and Kate, rightly so for what Harry has done, and Mr. like ink poison, is absolutely irreversible. And what Harry fears is that once Charles passes on, he won't be let into Britain at all. And that is a major problem for him.
It is a problem, but the reality on that as well, we've also seen, haven't we, the story by Vicky Ward in the Victoria Ward in the Telegraph, where they were talking about, and they upset the palace quite a lot about talking about funeral arrangements and things, and how William and Harry wanted him to be centre of that. Look, it's difficult to know. One thing I agree totally with Tom with is a reconciliation with William is not on the cards whatsoever.
Back, and the pattern is obvious: lawsuits, failed launches, rebrands, public spats. They're not underdogs anymore. They're liabilities. The palace doesn't trust them. The press doesn't trust them. And now even investors are backing away. The business world doesn't run on sentiment. It runs on stability and predictability. And Meghan and Harry's public image right now is neither.
Tom, do you think that King Charles is capable of forgiving Prince Harry for all? I mean, we heard that specifically he was overwhelmingly devastated over Harry's shots at his wife, Queen Camilla, the Queen Consort. Is it a situation where, I say all the time, I think he has a soft heart? Or is this about legacy? And is this about looking like the bigger person? Because he preaches a lot about forgiveness. We heard him talk about open borders. Sometimes he's very kumbaya. And I wonder if he's trying to put his money where his mouth is by making peace with his son. Because how can we take him seriously when he's meeting with Ukraine and Trump and trying to make peace as a global leader when he's not even at peace with his son?
Well, I think I disagree with you about that, because Charles, when he was the Prince of Wales, was absolutely unforgiving to anyone who said no to him. Oh. And in my book on the king, the rebel king, as it's called, my best sources were people who'd worked for him, and he'd been absolutely ruthless when he fired them. Oh. He had absolutely no time for anyone who said no to him. So he's a man who hates confrontation, and he has no forgiveness for people who don't agree with him. So I think the whole thing with Harry is it's guilt. I mean, it's guilt as a result of the divorce, the relationship with Diana, the fact that Harry is rather dim and he didn't look after him to make sure he had a role. But more, it was neglect as well in his teenage years when he was chasing Camilla and all the rest of it.
Club H, is that what the...
Exactly. There's that and a lot more. But I think that now, when he obviously is feeling mortal, he would like some sort of settlement. But I don't believe for a moment that William and Camilla would allow or would ever trust Harry, to come back into the fold. And I think that's a great problem for Harry, because the one thing he does need is a base and some security in Britain now. He's finding it very lonely and isolated in California, and Madame in Montecito is not making it easy for him. So he is at a loss. And that brings us obviously to the Angola thing, which is really a stunt. It's a pathetic stunt. You've got to look at the way that Harry has actually been badly advised, because after he lost that case in London against the British government to get armed protection, to do that interview on the BBC was just crazy.
Yes.
But he was taken there by Meredith Maines, who thought this is the way to get our voice across. And one thing you wanted at that moment was contrition. You wanted to say, end it all. But she thought, no, we'll go out and attack, just like here. And I think that is his problem. And he's got other cases coming up. He doesn't stop. He's in the clutches of lawyers who are making a fortune from all his litigation. And instead of being advised, cool it, if you wait a year, there may be some chance, he's doing the exact opposite.
Jobson, let's assume that the Sussexes did accidentally leak this story, and it was an accidental Sussex cock-up, okay? Could Maines have done so with the motivation that they were going to have to guilt, to use Tom Bauer's words, the royal family into this royal reconciliation, because now it's on the world's radar, and they're going to look really bad if they don't invite these two into the fold again?
I don't think the king would look bad. I think the king probably is, like any father, he had a very good relationship with his son Harry before the Meghan scenario. Better relationship with Harry than he did with William, and he'll have a degree of sadness and empathy. He was stopped really, but from any cooperation or contact really because of the government case with Harry was bringing against the government over security, and that he couldn't really get involved in that because that would be a constitutional problem. So I think that if you've got to look at this at the human level, I totally agree with Tom. I think that both William and Camilla will be advising that this guy's had too many chances. You cannot trust him. You certainly can't trust his wife, and that they are out of control. They use any opportunity they can to benefit themselves. So that's effectively what they are about. But I would have thought that I think the king probably, looking at the way he is, I do think he's a very empathetic guy. He's pretty ruthless too. But I think that he would probably want to at least have one conversation more with his son. And if that happens, it's probably Harry's coming over in September for World Child. The only real opportunity you've also got Trump around that time. You know, is Balmoral. And if he does come to Balmoral, then Camilla can go to Burke Hall for a couple of days. I can't imagine that she'll be there when Harry's there. So no, it's a possibility. I think it's a long shot, and I think that eventually the king will probably be talked out of anything. And even if he is considering it, I think a lot of people will be saying that this is not a good idea.
Instead of $1 billion Sussex brand, we've got a couple whose next headline is more likely to be about legal trouble or public fallout than a successful product launch. Bauer sums it up perfectly. Meghan is a fighter, relentless, driven, unflappable in public. But strength without direction isn't strategy.
Well,
This guy's not trusted.
Rob, when Harry made that dash to London, when the King revealed his cancer, to my surprise, Camilla was in the room for the 30 minutes. And she was there to make absolutely certain that Harry...
Right. I don't think that's true.
You don't think she was there?
No, I don't. In fact, I'm pretty certain she wasn't. Yeah.
I have heard I'm not ganging up because you know I love you. You're a human teddy bear.
No. I'm not saying that. It's just I don't think that's right.
Well, let's say whatever happens, I don't think she's going to let the King be trapped into an argument with Harry.
You're right about that. Yeah.
And he'd have to fly to Balmoral to see the King.
Absolutely.
But I think it isn't just the trust, you know. I mean, Harry has made a fortune and still does from Spare and the Netflix series.
Absolutely.
And he said such terrible things about William and Kate and Camilla. I mean, he didn't say that. I mean, and there is another book there. There are another 400,000 words.
How many pages did he tell the Telegraph he removed from the original
400.
book? Because he didn't.
A few more.
So there's another book there with
And Meghan told us she found her diary at Frogmore and she never signed an NDA.
I hear you, but I'm just, all I'm saying as a father, if you are going through what he's going through, you did have a relationship. You can't, you do listen to, obviously you listen to your wife, obviously you listen to your son, who's your wingman and your heir. But there will be always, in any fatherly relationship, even with the biggest black sheep in the family, there's always going to be a draw there.
And I think it's interesting because we always say, look at what he did to William and Catherine, and that is very important. And I believe it was cruel. You're suing all of these newspapers for leaking private information while publishing private texts.
I think brothers' relationships are different.
My point is, when you read the comments of the royal watchers and people that are really emotionally invested in this family, they feel like the ultimate betrayal was towards Queen Elizabeth in the last few weeks and months and years of her life, and Prince Philip. Prince Philip in a hospital bed, worried about what they're going to say on Oprah Winfrey. So, when you think about the people that will have an opinion on this, whether it's the British public or just royal watchers in general, their real betrayal, they feel like the ultimate betrayal was to the Queen, who had given up her entire life for this role.
Except for, actually, he said very little about the Queen. He said very little about the Duke.
But she was worried about the future of the monarchy.
But, I mean,
and he said somebody's racist.
Father, I think.
Rob, it was all going to come out in a lifetime. Not Oprah Winfrey thing did. The book would have come out. Spare would have come out. As did, of course, the Netflix series.
But it will come out afterwards. Well, she died.
Well, yes, but the Netflix series was before.
It was being filmed, but it came out afterwards.
But they didn't know that. And what's even more important is that when he went to Philip's funeral, he'd already done the Netflix interviews. Yeah. He'd written halfway through Spare. He knew, as he stood with his family, what he was going to say.
He'd sold out. This is the guy who sold out.
He was disloyal. But I think what we've got to look at the present moment is, I don't think he feels in any way guilty. I don't think Harry feels any remorse. And I think that is the key thing in all this reconciliation. He still thinks that he's owed an apology from Charles and from William for the way they've treated not only him but also Meghan. And he doesn't want to realise that it's his behaviour, his writing for money, being so unbelievably disloyal, that has caused and aggravated the problem.
Well, that won't be coming, will it?
No.
Well, what message does that send to the public and to other members, hardworking members of the royal family, if the King allows Prince Harry back into the fold
also
without
remember
any
the human side of all of this?
Well,
everyone. I know that it's almost turning into Peyton Place as a soap opera. But there is always the human element, and humans do things, instinctively sometimes, and you don't know quite what the king is necessarily feeling. Yes, as a person, you'd listen to your wife, you listen to your other son, but also, as the king, you'll make your own decision.
Well, I think the other point, which is very important in all this, is the accusation by Meghan, supported by Harry, that the royal family is racist. And her account of the conversations, which was a lie by her, to Harry when he first met Meghan, and that fabrication, the damage that did around the world, especially in Africa and Asia, about the royal family's image, has been and remains colossal.
Yes.
And this is the guy, Tom, that then tried to backtrack on it after to say that actually it's all to do with
racial consciousness, subconscious racism,
and all that, unconscious bias.
Unconscious bias.
And this is the guy that used a word that was used by the National Front to address another army cadet. This is the guy when he was a little boy that mocked an Indian bus conductor in a terrible way, and then wrote about it. Then wrote a letter to the bodyguard, repeating it after he was slapped by his mother for doing that racist comment. And this is the guy that wore a Nazi armband. And so to be lectured by someone like that, I find really abhorrent. Actually.
Well, I go further than that. I mean, all those things can be excusable as youth and all the rest of it. But the support of Meghan in her full story about the conversation, which was banter, and I know that from first hand, and was really inconsequential, to support that was his act of folly, because he was already a grown man at that stage. He knew the consequence of it.
And right now, her direction looks less like a plan and more like a hurricane in designer heels. If there's a window for any sort of truce, it's small. Harry's next UK trip in September for the World Child Awards could be it. Maybe even a quiet Balmoral visit. But William's position seems set in stone, and Camilla's protective instincts aren't going anywhere. At best, we might see a one-off private conversation between father and son. At worst, we'll see more photo ops spun as healing moments while the real rift remains untouched. Because until Harry accepts responsibility and Meghan stops treating the royal connection like a brand asset, the palace door will stay mostly shut. In short, we've got a prince desperate to come home, a wife who's already made it and doesn't care, a king torn between guilt and practicality, an heir who wants a moat widened, and a brand that's burning through goodwill faster than it burns through cash. It's not reconciliation. It's survival mode for both the monarchy and the Sussexes.